Hamptonio. To manipulate history is to manipulate consciousness. And to manipulate consciousness is to manipulate possibilities. And to manipulate possibilities is to manipulate power. Welcome to the show. Got a great show for you today. Want to make a couple quick announcements. First, we want to remind you guys about our Juneteenth event coming up, June 29th, the last Saturday in June. We want you guys to come out to the parade and festival. We're going to change our kickoff position. We're probably going to kick off the parade or step off at 16th and Lakeside. We're trying to make it easy a little bit from the city. They was getting a little squirrely on us about our Superior route. So, but we're going to kick off at East 16th and Lakeside and make that particular program, work for you. So you could come on out all the way out those lakeside and set out your chairs and watch the parade go by. We got the black soldiers, some representative from Tuskegee here, man. We at the park. We're gonna have the representative from League Park talk about the Negro League baseball players. The triple nickel air troopers will be there. So we like to put on programs with a purpose to educate us as well. So it's a good thing. And we don't want you to forget about too, on the 23rd of June, we're doing our African ball at the Mediterranean, our second annual African ball. So we want you guys to be a part of it. Want you to come out and participate. I kind of coined this as the original Juneteenth programs downtown. We got some imposters, but I ain't hating too tough. But I want our inner city folks to understand that it was us that's been down there over 10 years or more doing this type of event. So we want you guys to know about that. Come out and participate and show up. Just one other announcement as well is that one of our brothers in the city that deal with black on black crime, Brother Art McCoy and his group of activists around town is protesting about how the city is handling some things. They claiming that they want half of that government money, that TIF money, to be spent in our neighborhood. And that's been something that's been talked about for quite a while. All the money's going to downtown and our cities, inner cities being left out. And so it's a left out protest. It's going to be outside of City Hall, in downtown Cleveland, 601 Lakeside. He said we're sick of and tired of that same old politics as usual. Money goes downtown while our neighborhoods suffer. Okay, so they're tired of being left out. That's May 8th. That's going to be next Wednesday from noon to 3 p.m. May 8th. Come on out and support. If you're really, interested in looking out for our cities and that money to be, spent in our inner cities to help prevent situations and to help our young folks, come on out and support Brother Art doing it. You can call them at 216-804-7462, 206-804-7462. Come on out and support Brother Art and them. He's been doing that for quite a while. So we come on out and support him and make it happen. Brother V.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's funny that you would bring up money and talk about appropriations because one thing that I've been thinking about lately is how much of our city's money goes towards public safety. A few weeks ago, there was a state of the city addressed by Mayor Bibb, and he talked about things that are going on in the realm of public safety, and he mentioned the academy, and I think you had 52 cadets that were in the academy, and I think as of today, 3 of them have dropped out, so it's only 49. But he was really effusive about what that means to the city of Cleveland, and I know one of the things that has come up in the conversation is the fact that there is a shortage of officers in the city. They have a goal of about 1,500 police officers, or maybe 2 short of that. And right now, I don't think there are 1,200 police officers. And I think because of the shortages, they've had to do some things to reduce, I guess, the expenses. So they're having police officers work 12-hour shifts. I think one of the concerns of the previous year was that they paid out a lot in overtime. And of course, they have to pay out overtime because they don't
Mhm.
have enough officers to cover the
Right.
shift. So the
Mhm.
general consensus is we don't have enough police officers. Now, what I think about is the fact that over 54% of Cleveland's budget goes towards public safety.
Mhm.
So we're spending over half the money that we receive from taxpayer dollars basically to protect ourselves from each other, because that's why the police exist to a certain extent. They exist
Mhm.
to protect property, and they exist to protect people.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and the evidence of that is ward meetings. You go to a ward meeting, and the councilman is there, and the citizens are there, and the concerns that they bring up most of the time start with public safety. So you
Mhm.
go to a ward meeting, and you'll have a commander there or a high-ranking police official there, and they're
Mhm.
they're taking in all this information about concerns that the public has.
Mhm.
It's the response time. It's just the issues that people have with their neighbors or people down the
Mhm.
street, the cars getting
Right.
broken
Right.
into, the
Right.
house, all these things. And it's like, we live our lives in this fear of fear.
Mhm.
When you go to bed at night, you check the top lock, you check the bottom lock, you make sure your windows are, because everybody's living in this fear that somebody is going to deal with their property. So we have this focus on our own safety, and politicians respond to it by committing the money that the city has towards these things. Now, I know this is kind of convoluted, so I'm going to try to condense it, but the
Mhm.
realization was that we spend so much more on public safety than we spend on the things that prevent officers from being necessary.
Mhm.
And
Well, here's the go ahead. Mhm.
well, I was just going to say one of the things that we lack in our community is art and the impact that art can have. For instance, we have the Cleveland School of the Arts, right?
Mhm.
And then we have all these other schools, and there's no art in them.
Mhm.
But there have been studies that have shown that students are better students because they are involved in art, they're involved in music, they're involved in things that I guess are an impetus for them to be creative and to tap into their creative brains and their imagination. And as you know, we talk about this on the show all the time, the power of imagination. But you take that power away from children when you don't give them the opportunity to be creative. You just put some things down in front of them and tell them
They're
to
mimicking.
memorize
They're
that. And
mimicking. They're mimicking. Yeah. Yes.
right,
Mhm.
right. So
Mhm.
so the realization was that we got $512 million from the federal government as a result of the American Rescue Plan Act. So we got
Mhm.
all this money, and then the city had to decide how to spend it. No disrespect to Mayor Jackson, but he spent $100 million on the police,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
There was a grassroots effort to encourage the city to spend some money on the arts. And after the dust cleared, it was decided that they would spend $3 million of the $512 million on the arts, which is why we have the Transformative Art Fund.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, that $3 million represents 0.5% of the budget. It was a gift from the government. 0.5% of the budget this year goes to art and culture. 0.5% of the budget.
Mhm. Mhm.
54% of the budget is to protect us from each other and protect property, basically. I mean,
Mhm.
we can look at the history of policing in this country and we know why the police even exist. Okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because they needed them to protect themselves from us,
Mhm. Mhm.
overseers, riding
Mhm.
around on horses with
Mhm.
whatever they use to keep everybody in check. So this is convoluted, and I know perhaps there are kind of relativities that exist within this argument. But what I'm coming to is that we need to think about doing things that will prevent the
Mm-hmm.
things from happening that require police to respond. That's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
There is
Mm-hmm.
a $10 million appropriation for a violence prevention program. I have no idea what that looks like. I have no idea about how that would even work, who would be involved in that. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't spend $10 million on violence prevention, but I'm saying that we should have a greater responsibility in terms of using the money that people generate through whatever taxes that they provide to the city, that we should be thinking about doing other things besides
Mm-hmm.
hiring more police officers. Is Cleveland going to feel more secure because we have 1,500 police officers? Is that the idea? I don't know, but you're in the law enforcement business, so I'm really
Mm-hmm.
interested in your take on this.
Well, there's always the saying is saying that you can't police yourself out of this situation that we're in. It's I don't know if I could say more police is the answer, but I would say this is the situation we as a society has gotten ourselves into because there wasn't enough innovative thinking. There wasn't enough morality in this particular country in our cities, to notice that it's not rocket science to understand that, if you feel better about yourself, you do better about yourself. See, this society, I'm gonna come from a different angle, a little bit of a different angle. Because if you suppress the people, subjugate them, and do those particular things, you're gonna have issues. You see, because the system needs to understand the problem that we're having right now. They created. They created the situation. We could go back 400 years talking about all the stuff that they have done to create this problem, to create the consciousness, to create the type of mindset that has been transferred and generation after generation degraded, our consciousness to the point to where we are right now. Look at all the, I mean, look at all the movies, the music, and all the other stuff that they put out there to desensitize people and our children, and you got people controlling that stuff. They know what that's doing. You try to say and it gets me and it bothers me when foreigners and our European brothers and sisters look down their nose and like, what's wrong with those people? Look at them. They are just wild off the hook. They responsible for all the deaths, all this crime, this violent crime. It's these people. This no. How you gonna blame that on a group of people that have no control on any of their institutions? You know what I'm saying? You can't blame us, but now if we was in control of our own educational system, our communities, and things of that nature, then you can blame me. But you can't blame me if we sit up here begging to have Black History Month in our classrooms, and you're talking about taking that away. You had to fight to get a Martin Luther King Day. You don't know nothing. It blew all of our minds to hear something about hidden figures and these. It could go on and on about the things and the travesties and the atrocities that has been done to us as a people. That's going to create a certain type of consciousness. Something that Dr. Amos Wilson say, even for college. This is just a small example. And he talked about, and Vince, you would know this, when they talk about the certain curricular that you need in order to graduate, and they say you got to maybe take a language or things of that nature. So my point is, you don't even see nothing about African language in it. So psychologically, how did that make you feel? Your stuff ain't important. That's not necessary in order to this. And then they go in and, Columbus discovered it. All these light-skinned people, you know, heroes and things. How does that place a person's psyche, as children over and over again, second class, third class citizen? So my point of this. So, and then you go in, and you have these leaders that, the things that you're talking about in the preventative side, creating these programs that make these kids feel better about themselves, to show them some self-worth, and that ain't rocket science, man. When you're dealing with a kid in education, we all know that a young kid, you can take a young kid, and with the proper environment and the proper information being put in them at an early age, you can create anything that you want. The movie Trading Places almost told you that. You put a person in a certain environment, you can change their mentality to be anything that you want. But the problem I'm having here, and I'm gonna have to try to say this carefully, but y'all gonna get what I'm talking about. We're still letting folks off the hook that is responsible for putting and interjecting and projecting all this stuff. Who's promoting this stuff? Who's running Hollywood? Who's allowing this particular stuff to be on our brain? Because images and things like that is very important. How you see yourself. Images evokes emotions and actions. So how you feel about yourself. Look at what Black Panther did in that little time frame. People was going around doing like this, hitting their chest. Women cut their hair off, and you know what I mean. And they just went wild over in Africa. Look how that image have changed the mindset of it. Now imagine that type of imagery being outputted in our communities every day. Every day, our little kids are seeing something positive and seeing themselves in a positive light like that. Can you imagine? So I'm bringing that all back around to say about the crime situation. They developed all this. So now we're in this conundrum of, do we put more officers here? Or, we do things for the kids, or these kind of military schools for the kids, because we definitely got a problem. And so my point is, and I always do, let's get to the root of this. Who pushed this rock off the cliff and started going? Who threw the rock and hid their hand? Let's get to the root. And that's what we're gonna have to sift through and kind of have some type of balances on where we at, because there may be some people we can't save at this particular time. So police gonna be needed, but at the same time, we can start implementing more things. And lastly, what I talked about, I was on Art McCoy's show. We got to start these folks that's in our community that is raping our resources. Taking all our money out, the Family Dollars, the Arabs, the Dollar Generals, and all that. You just can't keep taking the resources out and not putting anything back. You need to be a part of the community from which it is feeding you, that is feeding your families and things of that nature. You just can't take the money out and run and when you lock the doors, run out the community and do that. We got to hold them more accountable. Put some dollars in, because there's like you was talking about with arts. There's a lot of programs out there that is underfunded that can help with the situation from which we're talking about.
Well, it's interesting that you would bring that up. In 2022, artists contributed $512 million to the economy of this region in 1 year. $500 million, over $500 million, because of what artists do. So that gives you an indication that it's really important for artists to do what they do. I just want to make a few comments about the Transformative Art Fund, because, as you know, I'm on the committee that is evaluating proposals to bring them to life and to energize different neighborhoods. And there's only so much that I can say, just based on the fact that I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But it is public knowledge that the Transformative Art Fund does exist. It's been talked about publicly. So I just want to say, from being someone who has been able to observe the whole process, it demonstrates the power of art. When you look at artists and what they do, they create solutions, and they have created some solutions, and we'll be able to see the evidence of the power of those solutions. The solutions don't always come from council meetings. They don't always come from meetings that happen in the state legislature and on Capitol Hill and so forth. The solutions come from the people who are on the ground doing the work. I host a radio program on another station, And on this other station, I have routine conversations with people who are in our community and are doing things. And sometimes folks have to find their own ways of funding their efforts. Sometimes they're blessed to get money from other sources. But the bottom line is people are affected by things and they find ways to deal with those things. And those things are not creative ideas that come out of city council meetings.
Mm.
So I know last year there was this idea of the people's budget, and it was
Right.
about the appropriation of a certain percentage
Hmm.
of those tax dollars and letting the people decide how they want to spend that money, and I can guarantee you, if people have a say in how money is spent to address specific issues, they're not going to say, well, we would rather give money to hire more police than we would to do this community program that we know is going to have an impact. You know,
Hmm.
it's really sad that, and we've had this conversation before, but it's really sad that as citizens and neighbors, we don't want to be involved in our own policing. Back in the day, back in the 60s, it wasn't about Pookie living in his mama's basement. It was about somebody who said, hey, I have a genuine interest in serving my community and I want to be a police officer.
Hmm.
And the police officer did live down the street, and he knew all the kids on the block, and people looked up to him or her and they respected that person, and you had a certain sense of ownership just because you were part of that community. But the dilemma that the police department has now is that they're having to import people from other cities and entice them with bonuses and perks and all these other things because it's the job that nobody wants to do. And if it's a job that no one wants to do, can you imagine what the mindset of that person is when it comes time to, working that 12 hours and being glad that the 12 hours are over and, I only have to work what, 3 days a week or 4 days or whatever the situation is. But I just I don't necessarily see it as a labor of love. The enticement is you can earn great money,
Hmm.
but earning great money in a
Hmm.
profession is not equivalent to living in your purpose.
Enjoy. And and that's the connection that I'm trying to draw in and make, a point is that you can't sit on the sidelines because policing is not going anywhere. Let's face the fact on that. So that means you have to get involved. That means we have to produce a group of people that has our best interests at heart. That's what the Black Shield. That's what I'm president of the Retirees Association. That's what I'm trying to lean them towards, of creating the type of individual that we want to serve our community. So I remember, if you may not recall, a couple of years ago, I tried to reach out to different people. I'm telling our listeners to connect me with those Black Lives Matter um, representatives and some of our other outspoken groups in our community. Look, we're going to have to create some type of coalition ourselves, and this is like when by talking to Professor Small, this is the perfect time because we've been the whole Black Shield situation come about consent decree that took place a long time ago, affirmative action case by Brother Fred Johnson them in order to get more blacks on the job. You see, now with this shortage, this is the perfect time for us to get more blacks on the job. You know what I'm saying? Because they're looking for anybody that halfway breathing. See, but the problem is the climate and all of the negativity that police has been having is not energizing anybody that want to be the police officer. So again, just like anything else, so how we solve this problem, you got to get into the mindset of the individual. That's the only way. We got to make them understand that this is your community. You can't get mad when they bring folks from Bay Village into your community that don't have any background in having a relationship with the African American community. Gonna take them years before they get used to just call somebody standing on the corner that this is a gang of people and they ready to do something. It takes them a while before they can get acclimated and understanding the inner city culture. So if we don't participate in that particular program, and then we allow them to bring outside folks to the inner city, when they start talking to your grandmama wrong and treating you wrong, then that's what you're going to get. So I'm saying these leaders, these orders, we got to take a different turn. We got to all these activist groups, these churches that I wanted to talk to and be a part of. Look, we got to be on the same page and say, hey, let's produce the type of police we want to see in our neighborhood. Let's turn them into guardians of our neighborhood. Make them understand consciously what their purpose is and their role that they should have in policing their community. And they cannot go in and accept and be victim to that same type of institutional behavior that we're seeing being displayed across our nation and in our cities. That's what's happening. So with our groups, which I envision and which I wanted to envision with the Black Shield, of us actually starting a program, a training program, a pre-training program, a pre-academy program, that we are bringing these people in. We're having classes with them. We're working them out. We're getting them prepared. But more importantly, we're getting them prepared mentally and conscientiously about what the job is and what the job entails. So, that's the angle that I would like to go into.
Yeah. A few years ago, I participated in a program that brings the new cadets, the new hires into the community. They call it
Mhm.
reverse ride-alongs.
Right.
So basically, they have an opportunity to interact with people in the community and give their perspective and hear the perspectives of those
Mhm.
who are in the communities that are being policed. And I think it's a worthwhile program. But I remember having conversations with a few who had newly been hired, and they had this idea that, they were going to have compassion and concern, and they're going to look out for the people that they deal with in the course of their policing, and so forth and so on. I just wonder, from your perspective, because you've been an officer for a long time, and in that period of time, you see a lot of things. And I think to a certain extent, you might develop a tough skin about certain things, because
Mhm.
after a while, you might, and this is not you personally, but as a police officer, you might become a little bit insensitive just because you've dealt with
Mhm.
it so much.
For
Your
sure.
patience
So
is
anybody, ain't the
yeah.
welfare lady, she's insensitive when she, people say they be so mean. It happens. Any kind of people oriented business. But go ahead. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I'm just wondering, how does being in that position change you over a period of time?
Well, that's a good question, and there's some things that I'm talking about, writing about, and things like that. That's very important because it depends on how you go into that particular situation. What kind of mindset are you dealing with in the beginning? Is your true purpose is to help the people? Because we could talk about that as far as politicians is concerned. They could be and show all this kind of activism before they get elected, but when they get in office, because they're subject to their surroundings and all that other institutionalized way of doing things and that pressure, they tend to, you heard him say, you hear him all the time. What happened to so and so? He was this, that, and other. He's this, that, and other. That pressure. That's why we right back around again to our communities and culture. See, if you got a good foundation in your culture and who you are and understanding those basic foundational principles that about the greater good for the greater number, you're looking out for the people, things like that. As far as me is concerned, that never penetrated me like that. Even though sometimes you get frustrated on the street about your people, this and that, I always understood that there was a root cause to why this person is acting out the way they are. You see, if you raised in craziness, you raised in drug infested situations. We can talk about drugs and how that inundated our communities and why and how that happened. And then now you got fathers gone. You got when that crack epidemic, they were selling their cars, doing rock rental stuff, renting their cars. It just tore down the family all together. And now you got children that are products of this type of stuff, seeing their mothers out on the streets and disrespected themselves. They feeling embarrassed from other kids. And so now you have these heartless felons. You see what I'm trying to say? You come in with type of, then you couple that with the negative games that they see being advertised. They playing Grand Theft Auto, the music that is being pumped out like that. Man, that's a heck of a lot of, that's pressure, brother. That's, and we ain't, and that's what I wanted to do, an image program. We not outputting anything to counteract any of that negative stuff. We get one Black Panther movie every blue moon to inspire the people to do something positive, or we see a Hidden Figures where we probably can't even get our kids to even watch, every now and then, to inspire us to say we are better, we can do better, and things of that nature. So this is the position that we find ourselves in, so we have to hit them early, and like I said, it ain't rocket science that we have to get into the business of teaching and training our school with something with Kaba Kamene and myself, where we, it was, I felt the same way, and he brought it up the same way. If we don't have the financial backing to build our own schools, then we're gonna have to do these after school programs, you know what I mean, to drill down and talk about who we are to our children. We got to get into the mindset, if we don't never take over that position of training our own kids and educating our own kids just like the Jews do, then we're gonna forever be in this problem, brother.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It really starts in the home. And one of the issues that we've had is that we've had dysfunctional parents because of the environmental issues that you raised, like the crack epidemic and so forth and so on. But on top of the illegal drugs, you have the legal drugs. The reality for Black people in this country, and Black people around the world, really, but particularly in this country, is that we deal with the impact of trauma on our lives. We deal with the impact of trauma that we inflict upon each other, and we deal with the trauma that results from this assault on our psyches.
Yes, that's what, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you talk about the images that we get, and there's this thing called predictive programming. I got a message from my brother Wayne yesterday, actually, and it was about predictive programming. And there was example after example of the predictive programming involving the Twin Towers. These images went back 30, 40 years. There was an image, I think it was from like 1970, 1980. I think it was 1970 something, that showed an airplane crashing into the Twin Towers. The idea of that happening, it wasn't a coincidence. It was something that we were primed for. So we get all these images in the programming that we get, and then when things happen, we have an easier time accepting them. They share what they do in plain sight. There was something that you mentioned earlier that made me think about the movie, or you mentioned Trading Places. I was thinking about Eddie Murphy, and what you said was profound. You could take a person and put them in that environment, but particularly you put a Black person in that situation. This is about genetics. It's not about superiority or anything like that. It's about genetics. Nana Kwa, Dr. Whitaker, shared something with me a few weeks ago, and it was just about the differences in our DNA chains, and the fact that we have 9 of something, that others only have the genome.
6, yeah, right, yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why they go through so much to take us away from understanding the power that we have in ourselves, just because of the way we're designed.
That's right.
That's how you can look at the continent of Africa and see this young person who has created a vehicle that will run on water.
Yes, air and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
All those things. So, the idea that we would be steered away from the understanding of the power within ourselves, and then we can move over to the idea of religion. You know, because there's a difference between religion and spirituality. Back in the day, religion and spirituality were married to each other. But then you had the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, and you had this idea no longer are all beings divine beings, only one is a divine being. And then our power kind of slipped away because we stopped seeing ourselves in that manner, in that sense. We couldn't identify ourselves as divine beings, even though prior to that, we had the 42 declarations of freedom from sin. And we went through those 42 declarations every day. And as we pronounced those things, we hadn't sinned. And we were living our lives as divine beings just based on our understanding. Again, it was Wayne Chandler who brought us to this idea, some of us, that the universe is mental. So when you look at being able to control the mentality of people, you look at being able to control outcomes. You look at being able to control behavior. So if you have this idea that you're less than someone else because you identify as a minority, then you'll always see someone else as greater than you, and you don't look at the power that you have within yourself. You know, when you look at the way we're designed, our bodies have an amazing ability to heal, particularly when we're given the right stimulus. You know, we've had conversations about science versus nature, for instance, and there are some who say, "Oh, herbs, that's a bunch of crockery." You know, ain't nothing about no herbs. But then you go back and there's this thought or idea: let food be thy medicine. So what do the petroleum producers do? They synthesize something in nature and then they give that to you as a solution, but that solution causes problems. And it's based on science. So they can use these elaborate measures to create something when you can just actually go out in the yard, pull up that dandelion root, prepare it, make a tea, and get results in your body. You know, these are the things that we disconnect from, because I like the way you say it all the time. You say we think that the white man's ice is colder than ours.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? That's what I'm saying. The greatest sight game has been played. There's an African proverb that says, "You don't teach the path of a gorilla you don't teach the path of the forest to an old gorilla." Meaning he's been around. So I call this system and everything that we do, we listening to the new kids on the block. If our people been around for centuries upon centuries and thousands of, don't you think these little foundational issues that we having as people, we have found a way to deal with it? But you got new kids on the block that's coming out of the dark ages, and never put a civilization together where people lived in harmony and cohesiveness. Went around every continent on the planet and disrupted and had issues with, and annihilated. How they can put a system together that's going to be just and work for you? It just don't make sense. It just don't make sense. So my point is, well, for what you're saying, we letting the new kids on the block run the show. It's just like you got a household. You can't kick the parents out the house and let the kids run the house, or you're going to have some dysfunction. And look at the dysfunction, people. The water messed up. The food messed up. The air messed up. Ozone messed up. Economic system messed up. Race relations messed up. Religion messed up. Everything that you can halfway think about is messed up and is not working in harmony with nature and God around you. It's almost sacrilegious. Everything that you do is not good for you. Me and Chris were just talking about, my brother was just talking about the light system. We know it. I knew it, but it kind of got home to me, registered with me in my inner parts about the lighting system, because he was looking at infrared treatment, and actually in the lights and the bulbs that we have right now, the red spectrum of the light system is out. You can use that for healing, but you got the blue spectrum, which is harmful to you. So we're being hit from the computers, with the Blu-rays in it, the lights all in your house. It's like a slow kill for the cells. You're being like in a rotisserie every day, being shot by something in radiation and don't even know it. You know what I mean? So I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to go find some bulbs that have this full light spectrum and the rate, you know. So I'm saying, and then you have people like Bill Gates want to block the sun. You know what I'm trying to say? Block the sun, my man. What is you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying it's a covert and an overt plan that is seriously going on. That's why I stress so much. We better be paying attention to what's going on and get out of the basketball game and do some other stuff right now because folks are serious about what they're doing. So I'm saying all that to say is that we have to go back to what our founding fathers in the motherland and all over the planet. Yes, we've been everywhere, all four corners of the planet. Any place you go, the further you dig, it's coming up black. Okay, you know. So my point is, yes, we've been there, but our ancestors and our DNA, from what we know from this point, come from Africa, and they wasn't around twiddling their thumbs waiting for Europe to save them. They figured out these problems. They understood these problems. So they have some foundational stuff that we can learn from it. And I've been trying to stress that for 30 years. Take a look, y'all. Take a look. It's worthy of it.
Yes. I just want to shout out, I'm assuming it's a brother, Prosper T, that has been in our chat on Facebook and YouTube. And just want to remind the listeners that you're listening to 360 Info Network here on AM 1490 WERE. You can catch us on the radio. You can catch us at newstalkcleveland.com online. You can also go to Facebook and YouTube. You can go to the 360 Info Network Facebook page. You can go to Brother Hamptonio's YouTube channel, which is The Journey with Hamptonio. You can also go to my YouTube channel and you can catch our broadcast. And as Proper T is doing, you can place your comments in the chat, and those who are watching us online will be able to check us out. Also, I just want to remind you about the existence of Wings Academy. You may have heard the spot on the open of the show. There is an African-centered school in the Cleveland Municipal School District. It's called Wings Academy, and the person who is largely responsible for it is none other than Dr. Qua David Whitaker. Some of you know as Nana Kra Kwamina the second. You can send your children to this school. Some of them may qualify, and when they go to this school, they are going to receive an immersive experience in African history and reality. This is one of the solutions that we have talked about that is so important for us because it doesn't make sense for an oppressor to teach your child how to be free.
Come on, man.
Doesn't make sense. The whole purpose of the school system is to create a pipeline for individuals to go into prisons and work as enslaved persons. That's what it's about. Let's just call it what it is. That's what it is. That's why those children go to school and some of them don't really have a genuine interest in what they're being taught because of what they're being taught. I've looked at videos online and we talked about images. Brother Hamptonio, we talked about images, and I remember back in the day we talked about an image campaign. I think that the internet is kind of serving that purpose to an extent right now. Because 10 years ago, you weren't on Facebook necessarily seeing as much Black history as you see now. You have platforms like TikTok, which is kind of imperiled now because the Congress wants to, they want to ban it. They want to take it over. And when they take it over, the algorithms that were associated with the previous version will be gone and they'll be starting from scratch. But I'm going to tell you, I have learned more from Instagram and TikTok
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Facebook,
yeah, yeah. Absolutely, some
than,
good stuff on there,
than I
man.
than I learned
Mhm.
in 15 years of being in school. The things that we're learning about because there are people who are conscientious enough to share that information so that we get the things that we didn't get. I have a very good memory of being in high school and having a conversation with the history teacher, and I'm like, I'm looking at the book, and I'm seeing, the enslavement that happened, and that whole paradigm. So I get it. We were slaves in America at one point, but I'm thinking, well, what were black people doing in the 1920s? What were we doing in the 30s? What were we doing in the 40s? What were we doing in the 50s? It's not in this book. So I asked my teacher, I said, well, why aren't we learning this? And you know what he told me?
Mm.
In a matter of speaking, he says, I can't teach you because I wasn't taught.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. And he was being genuine, and it
Mm.
just so happened that I had written a paper in my English class about Reconstruction and post emancipation. So I had information about what happened after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into law and all that. So I was able to share that information with my history class, because
Oh,
what
okay.
I was sharing with them was what was not in the history book. But the point of it is that the oppressor is not going to equip you for success in life. They're going to equip you to serve their agenda and their purpose. So they created schools so that they could have a supply of factory workers who really only needed to follow orders, follow directives, and create products that would enrich folk.
Mhm.
But it,
Mhm.
it wasn't about our success. One of
Right.
the biggest issues with capitalism as it exists right now is that you look at the salary structure, and the CEO makes 2,000 times what the frontline worker makes. Where's the equity in that? Why would that person on the front line have an interest in the success of the company when they're not getting the benefit of it? So if you had a shared ownership of that company, then those frontline workers would be so much more productive,
Yeah.
and they would
Yeah.
be able to live successfully in life because their needs would be met. But when you look at a country that the minimum wage has been 7.25 for how long? And year after year after year, we continue to have inflation. There's no way that what you're making on your job can cover it's just impossible. And it's by design. And then when you talk about increasing the minimum wage, the business owners say, oh, well, we can't do that. We can't pay these people more because they're cutting corners to get as much out of the folks that they have in the first
Mhm.
place.
It,
You
it,
know,
it's it's called greed, man. Greed. Greed is taking us down the toilet right now, Vince. It's all about greed. You know, is it rocket science to know that this plastic is wreaking havoc on our planet and in our communities and in our bodies? Why not go right back to using glass bottles that kids can go back and get money and recycle those things? What's wrong with that? Okay, you didn't make 50 billion, made 48 billion. So doggone what? Where's the morality at, my brother? See, and we need to understand that our school system was based on. I think they said the father of our education is they call his last name is Mans. I forgot his first name is Man. He
Horace
went over,
Mann.
huh? Horace.
Horace Mann.
Right, Horace Mann. That's right, Horace Mann. So he went over there to Germany to get the blueprint on how our public schools should be set up. Put them in rows, and it was because Germany was talking about how they can control the mentality of the people. This is how the system is set up. Something Dr. Amos Wilson said, and it's very profound and important. If your educational system does not teach the children to fix your current problems, then you have a problem. You're just self-perpetuating this big old circles of the same situation. If we understand as a community that we need more black businesses, our educational system should be geared towards in our children establishing more black businesses. That's common logic. So you hit it on the head too when you talked about why we think the man is going to ever teach you any. See, this is critical thinking. Actually, it's basic critical thinking to me. Because people get on me with like, Len, well, you can't expect, people ain't had your journey. You can't expect them. I mean, if you 40, if you 50, 60 years old and you call yourself free, having free thinking like you always claim, well, when I start talking about oppression, oh, that was a long time ago. I could buy a house anywhere I wanted. So if you got all this free range thinking how come you just had having developed critical thinking and understanding that the man is never going to teach you anything that's going to help you take his foot off your neck. Come on. I mean, that's critical, basic critical thinking. So you're going to have to do your own and be your own. But we don't see people pushing in that direction, especially our talented 10. You look at it, it takes people like Dr. Umar Johnson to really power that. And I mean, you got Dr. Whitaker, and we talked about the school and Wayne Academy and all those kind of things like that. We got that should be popping up all over the place, all over the place. But to me, that's basic level of trying to get yourself together to some form of independency, integrity, community. All those things is necessary. So again, but we sit back and let the man run the show, follow the lead of our children, that we can see the destruction and how everything is lined up right now, falling down. It's about to crumble down on top of us. But when you start mentioning anything about leaving this place, just no. The man done showed you for over 400 years. He don't give a doggone if you built this country. He don't care if you built it. He know he built it off your labor and the sweat of your back, but he still didn't give you one iota of freedoms to move about the way you was. There's plenty of Black Wall Streets that we had. We built over 200 some towns coming right out of 20 years out of emancipation. But he found every kind of way to destroy it, break it down, take it away, steal your land and everything. So my point is, how long are you going to keep looking at it like that? So at least think about some other alternatives, Is it when you think you ever going to have a come to Jesus moment?
Yeah. Well, you spoke about Black Wall Street, and I think it's really important for us to have a full understanding of what actually happened. Because after they had that situation where buildings got burned down and folks got pushed out and so forth and so on, those brothers and sisters recreated what they had. That's the story that needs to be told, and again, it just goes back to the importance of the narrative and the importance of knowing history. We've had so many situations where what we accomplished as beings was swept under the rug. We talk about this in February every year. We look at the contributions that Black folk have made to civilization, and then we arrive at the conclusion that we were responsible for civilization. And the carbon copy that has been created and credited to Europeans was actually originated by us. And I don't want to sound like I'm being abrasive or cynical or anything, but it just seems as though they have done a very poor job of reflecting what civilization really should be. I mean, we've got all these conflicts going on in the world right now. There are students on the campus of Case Western Reserve University who are protesting something that's going in this so-called place called the Middle East, right? And they're convicted about that. All right. So you've got all these situations, but there is a recognition that something about that situation is not right. And then when you look historically, you see how all these wars have been fought, and they tell you about it. They tell you that it's about one thing when in actuality, it's about something else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like if you look at the Vietnam War, for instance, this was a war that was supposedly fought because of the threat of communism. But what actually happened during the war is that the rice economy of Vietnam was sabotaged to create opportunity for people who were growing rice in Louisiana. That was one thing that happened. Another thing that happened, and I had a conversation with a brother 3 weeks ago about how they were bringing illegal drugs back to America in the cadavers of soldiers who gave up their lives in the war.
Absolutely.
They came in through Dover Air Force Base, Delaware, and they harvested all of that. It was because it was a pipeline for heroin. It was what
Yeah.
it was.
Right.
So they
Right.
tell you one thing and it's actually something else. And now to make it even
Afghanistan. Hmm.
more contemporary, you've got companies like Halliburton back in the 2000s, and then now you have BlackRock and Asset Manager. But these companies are also involved in defense contracting, and they're
Hmm.
also involved in construction.
Hmm.
So they, because they're able to manipulate the government, they can see that funds are spent on the military and used, and then they can tear stuff up,
Hmm.
and then they can put it back together and
Hmm.
get paid both times. This is how diabolical the system
Ingenious.
is.
It's ingenious.
It is, it's like wow. And it's based on violence and destruction. Brother Wayne and I have conversations about silver. Do you know that they put something like 500 ounces of silver into one of those missile warheads?
Mm.
500 ounces of silver in one bomb, and then they blow it up. Do you know
Man.
how life changing 500 ounces of silver could be to one person right now?
Hmm.
We're gonna need to continue this conversation because there are some things that I want to put out there about what's going on with the financial system, and we weren't able to get to it within the hour that we've been on AM 1490. Our time is winding down, but I really want to continue this conversation with you, Brother Lynn. I think that there are some folks out there that need to know what we're going to talk about in terms of economy. So I want to take this opportunity to remind folks that we are on AM 1490 WERE, and you can listen to us up until the top of the hour, and we're going to merge over to our Facebook and YouTube platforms. Also want to encourage you, like and subscribe to our channels. I don't know where Brother Lynn is. Magic number is 1,000. We both need 1,000 subscribers on our channels in order for us to get the maximum benefit for having these channels. We've been doing this for free. We've been doing this programming for free for a long time, but you can help us. You don't have to pay any money. All you have to do is like and subscribe to the channel, and you will provide a benefit to us as content creators. So if you could just do us a favor, do us a big one, go over to the YouTube channels, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and then that way when we go live, you get a notification. We got about a minute and 15 seconds before we conclude the radio broadcast. Anything you want to share, Brother Lynn?
Yeah, I just want to remind people about the rally with Brother Art McCoy and friends, May 8th. That's from 12 to 3 p.m. Come on out and, and stand up for your right. If you deserve a fair share, let's just man up and speak on it. So that, in front of City Hall, come on out May 8th from 12 noon to 3 p.m. and remind you about the parade and the ball. 216-323-6155. Give me a call.
All right. Just want to thank Brother Proper T for chiming in. He had quite a bit to say, and apparently something was resonating with him because he had a lot to say. I also want to thank our engineer, Tone Harley. Again, big ups, Brother Tone. You make it happen for us, and we are grateful. To those of you who are listening on the radio, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.
Peace.
All right, we are at 12 noon and we are continuing the conversation. We were talking about economics, and I just want to point out how economics have been used to control populations. We mentioned earlier about the minimum wage situation. Our economic system is going through a reboot. They called it the Great Reset, and this is something that came up maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We've been talking about this. They have a new payment system that was implemented back in July of 2023. It's called FedNow. And FedNow was the precursor to an idea known as central bank digital currencies. One of the issues that we've been having with our economic system is the fact that because of things that have happened, and we can bring up the pandemic as one example, but there was a need to create a stimulus for the economy. So what they did and we talked about ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act. These dollars were created to stimulate economies in cities across the country. The issue with creating all this money is that the more money you create, the more money you have in a system, the less it is worth. You can look at countries like Venezuela, Zimbabwe, uh, I think Cyprus, other places in the world that have seen their currencies debased to a point where they were worth absolutely nothing. You could go into a store, you'd have to have a wheelbarrow to buy something because it required so much cash to buy something because the money was not worth anything. Well, we're seeing the same thing happen in the United States because of the level of inflation that has happened and because of the amount of money that's in the money supply. So they're going to have to do a reboot. Now, they've been talking about this for months, but there is a prediction that the stock market is going to see a serious crash simply because a lot of those products that are represented in the stock market are overvalued. If you look at a company like Tesla, for instance, Tesla's value is not in the cars. Tesla's value is in the speculation on the cost of the stock. So people are buying this stock because they see that it's going to continue to rise in price. So Tesla doesn't make as much in terms of numbers on General Motors, Toyota, and other companies, but Tesla is the number one automaker in the world just because of the speculation of the value of their stock. Somebody who represents the Democrat Party has been circulating memes on Facebook about the stock market being at an all-time high and looking at the level of the stock market as being a reflection on the prosperity of the American population. But the problem with that is that the American population is not invested in the stock market to any degree that they would be able to profit from it because they have been controlled by the manipulation of the economy. You have the chairman of the Fed, Jerome Powell, and for the longest time they were saying, well, we want to keep inflation at 2%. This is part of how they have manipulated the economy. But a few months ago, he just basically threw his hands up and said, hey, we can't keep it at 2%, and there's not really a whole lot that we can do to keep it under control. So the American country has eliminated its debt ceiling, and they've given themselves permission to print as much money as they need to print. And with that, you're going to have inflation like we've never seen before. Last year we saw inflation pushing what they were telling us was like 8-9%, when in actuality it was really more like 16, 17, 18. Some said it was as high as 20%. So this is the reality of living in this country. Things are designed in such a way to keep us so divided. That's what this whole Republican Democrat face off is all about. Keep us so divided that at no point do we ever unite against the forces that are looking to keep us under control. They control us through controlling energy prices because that limits your mobility. They control us by controlling the food supply and corrupting it with things. Lynn, we talked about the water. you know, why do you put fluoride in water when you know that it affects the pineal gland, creates calcification of the pineal gland, which is really the seat of your intuition and your ability to be in tune with nature? So they want to corrupt your ability to be in tune with yourself, to have ideas and things that will enable you to survive, but not only survive, to thrive. They don't want your success. They want you to fail because your failure means their success. That's the reality. We talk about the World Economic Forum and other think tanks that exist right now. Their sole purpose is to maintain a certain level of control that keeps you from having it.
Yeah, you hit the. Go ahead.
Yeah, we walk around doing this all day. All day we're tuned in, we're plugged in to information that come from these media companies that control most of the information that we receive.
Mhm.
And in order for us to be successful in life, we got to put the phone down. Just like Erica Badu said, I can make you put your phone down. You know, you got to put the phone down. You got to close the laptop. A few weeks ago, we had this phenomenon called the eclipse. And people all over the world, or wherever they could, I can't say all over the world because they couldn't see it in some parts of the world, but people in certain parts of the world were able to look in and tune into that. But there was a reason not to. And most people didn't know about the reason not to look at the sun that way. And this is not something that was promoted on the media. The media was saying, hey, everybody, look at the sun. Look, during this moment, it's going to be magical, so forth and so on. To me, that eclipse was like the Super Bowl. It was an opportunity for people to be focused on something so that they could receive other information. The Super Bowl ain't about the game. The Super Bowl is about the commercials. Super Bowl does not exist without commercials. And because so much money is spent on that advertising and the fact that you've got this captive audience at one time, that you can give them whatever messages you want them to get during that window of opportunity. And if you go back to the day of the eclipse, I saw it and other people saw it too. I have never seen so many chemtrails.
Wow, you said two or three people called me about the out of the blue, like you said, Lynn, did you see? Wow, what did you say it to? Yep, okay.
I saw it. I mean, it was it
Mhm.
was just so profound to me that I took pictures of it because it's not uncommon for me because I photograph nature too. But I looked up in the sky and I'm like, "Dang, what the heck is going on here?" It's like, you
Wow,
know,
wow.
yeah. So,
Mhm.
but Brother
Mm,
Wayne shared something with me about the spiritual implications of the eclipse. So, what I chose to do was I chose to be in meditation in that moment.
mhm, mhm,
I was
mhm.
in meditation for an entire hour as the eclipse was happening. And of course, my eyes are closed and I'm in trance, but at the same time, I had kind of an awareness of what was going on outside of the room, and
Mhm,
I could hear the birds chirping, and I could see darkness across my eyelids and so forth. So I
mhm,
was conscious of aware of what was going on, but I
mhm,
wasn't focused on the sun. And
mhm.
again, I need to do more homework in terms of fully understanding the implications of not viewing the eclipse, but it was definitely something that we should have an awareness of. And in my personal perspective, bruh, is
Mhm,
that this opportunity was utilized by the people who want to control. This is
mhm,
why,
mhm.
all these companies are putting out these glasses that you can look at the sun. So it's not safe, but you wear these little 20 cent, you know, these little 20 cent glasses, and you're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes but that back to that as well, man. You just critical thinking again. I'm back to critical thinking and looking around you and seeing and being aware of what you're dealing with, who you're dealing with, you know, is very, very important because in knowing our culture, that's why I'm definitely a proponent of looking back and seeing what your ancestors and people that's engulfed in Eastern philosophy, what they have to say. They've been on the planet for a long time and had culture. And if you would look at it, most of them have culture that evolves around nature. All right. Their whole philosophy is set around how to live in harmony with nature and balance. That is important. That is important. And we know that through history, it teaches us that the system coming out of Europe has always been out of balance. You see, so the methods, the mythology, the ideology, and everything else that comes forth from that, because they're in control right now and controlling the planet, it's going to come from a perspective that is not going to be beneficial to people of color. You have to understand that. So going back and knowing, and I'm saying that to say, when you talked about those cosmic and celestial phenomenons that are going on, because right now, me and my brother just was talking about it. There's a lot of stuff going on in the cosmos right now. Almost daily, if you're paying attention to articles, the radio frequencies, sun flares is jumping up like this. Our magnetic field on the planet is a whole lot of stuff that is going on in the cosmos, and that's when you can get almost spiritual understanding nature. When you talk about those particular things, we have Dr. Brown that come on and talk about these equinoxes and the solstices that take place on the planet. Our people understand that during those was times that you're supposed to be and be doing something else other than what we doing. You see what I'm saying? That's why it's so important in learning your culture and learning what our ancestors have put down, because they've been here. They understood it. They see people attitude and consciousness change through a certain time of season. Like we talk about, there's certain foods that you should be eating at a certain time of year that deals with the body and all those things we're not practicing. And then we wondering what's going on with us. We wondering what problem, why we having this problem here and why we having this problem there. So
Yes.
that's why it's so important for us to take a look. And we would be taking a look. We wouldn't be trying to disassociate ourselves with Africa if we knew the true sciences and the development that it came out of Africa. And then when you talked about earlier about that with Dr. I think his name, Dr. Phillips, I can't think of his name, when they're talking about those genomes. I seen Sister Quayle Arcana, I think Arcana said the same thing, and I was surprised that she said, about them extra genomes. Black people, melanated people got 9. Other folks got 6. The chimpanzee got 4. And if you got more genomes, that bring forth more intelligence and things of that nature. So your people laid out this roadmap for you on this thing called life. Your Bible speaks about it and not in depth enough about that relationship between you and the cosmos. In Genesis, it said in the beginning, the firmaments in the heavens would be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. So if our pastors out here telling you, don't you put that astronomy stuff, don't you pay no attention to that astronomy, don't you look at, then you're gonna negate the signs. Every indigenous culture on the planet gave reverence to that and understood its connection to the planet and to them. So if God's life force energy is in you and we all connected, then it's going to affect you. So you need to be paying attention about alignments and things of that nature, man.
Yeah.
Come on. And this man is
Well,
taking you totally away from you, man.
interestingly, you mentioned someone wanted to block the sun,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which is so antithetical to all of those cultures that you mentioned that worship the sun. If
Mm-hmm.
the sun is the source of your edification, you can't have plants without the sun. You can't grow anything without the sun. People worship the sun because they had reason to. Without the sun, you don't exist, right? So for you
Absolutely.
to block the sun because you scared about what the sun is going to do to you, that shows right there that perhaps you're not thinking through things properly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then, you talk about the genetic differences. Our skin absorbs the sun. We get D3 from the sun. We go crazy during the wintertime, seasonal affective disorder, because we don't get enough sunlight. Our immune systems don't function properly because we don't get enough sunlight, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, it's all about nature. When you were speaking, I was thinking about Medu nature.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
nature,
Mm-hmm.
same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you understand your connection to nature, you have an ability to live successfully just because of that connection. But when you make that departure from nature, when you make that disengagement, that's when you have the issues. When you
Mm-hmm.
eat a whole bunch of processed food, for instance, you're not taking in nutrients, you're taking in chemicals, and the chemicals have an effect on your body. So what do? We take more chemicals. You drank the milk. Your body doesn't have an ability to digest that protein that comes from milk. So then you go get a pill that's supposed to neutralize the acid so that you can drink the milk and enjoy whatever the milk was in. You know, it's so anti-nature. I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
how many of us would actually crawl up under a cow and put our lips on something to get some milk from it? We're not going to do that from the cow. As an infant, you do it from your mother because that's the reason that the breast is there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I was talking with we were talking with Richard Bona a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned the
Oh
fact
yeah,
that
yeah.
he was
That was
he was
fun.
he was nursing up until he was 5 years old. Hold up, I need to take a
I think
milk
he
break.
said, no, I think he said 10. I think he said 10 years
I
old.
don't know if it was, I think he said, I don't know, but I'm just saying that to say
Man,
that this is what it's for.
man, that's
And I don't want to get us taken off of YouTube or anything like that, because we can't suggest that there are certain things that aren't good for us, if you know what I'm saying.
mm,
But what a mother does for an infant with her milk is one of the greatest defenses for their immune systems.
mm,
And
absolutely.
what we do typically is when that child is in that critical uh, development period, we give them a whole bunch of chemicals that compromise their ability to live life without certain things because we've given them those chemicals. You know, it comes back to
Mm,
what you take in, it's either going to help you or hurt you.
mm.
And you have to develop the mentality that allows you to know the difference.
Hey.
Somebody shared a video with me yesterday, and it
Mhm,
was about Aldi. Aldi is one of my favorite places because they sell a lot of organic stuff.
mhm,
And there have been measures to prevent truth in labeling. So they don't want you to know that things have been genetically modified. But you've
mhm,
got products that are coming from other countries, and you have some products that are here in America, and they will put on the label that this food product has bioengineered
ooh,
substances.
mm,
Now, if
mm,
you don't have that critical analytical thinking cap on as you do, brother, you see that and it doesn't even mean anything to you.
mm, mm,
But if you read
mm,
between the lines, it's like, oh, bioengineered. That
mm,
means that they use science to create a difference in this product. So it's not what it was originally. And if it's not what it was originally, then yeah, it could do some damage. I bought a package of wild rice from Aldi, and I looked at the back of the package, and there it was. This
mm.
food product contains bioengineered elements,
Wow, wow,
you
wow,
know,
wow,
but
wow.
it was wild rice, and then there was a packet inside that had a whole bunch of stuff in it that I know that I don't eat.
Mm.
So, and there was whey in there. There was some kind of corn product in there, and I just
Mm,
happen to know that over 90% of the corn that's sold in America and grown in America is genetically modified.
mhm,
So I had the discretion to say, I'm not going to use the packet. I'm just going to use the rice. The rice
mm,
is okay. But
mm,
all that other stuff that they give you to flavor the rice, that's where the problem is. And
mhm,
that just goes to the idea that, again, we have to think critically and analytically. We got to read the labels, and not only that, we have to have the discipline. How many times, bruh, does the birthday roll around and somebody set a cake in front of you with a whole bunch of candles on it and say, "We love you. You love me, but you're gonna give me this poison, and then you're gonna ask me to participate in a ritual because that's what it is. Blowing the candles out on the cake is a ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and what it does is it symbolizes extermination. When you blow out a candle, you take away light. When you take away light,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? Well, we
Mm-hmm.
don't think about that because we've been socialized into certain behaviors and
Mm-hmm.
we accept them as normal. So
Yeah.
it's normal to eat a great big dose of white sugar on your birthday, and then you're gonna pay the price for it because it's happened to me, bro. I'm speaking from experience. I had
Mm-hmm.
the cake and I got sick within days because I
Mm-hmm.
don't do sugar like that, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But we accept that, you know. It's like, okay, I'm gonna have a cup of coffee. I'm gonna like Dr. Africa would say, I'm gonna have some chicken embryos, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're gonna have some chicken embryos. You're gonna have the pus because you put the pus from the cow into the coffee to give it a milky consistency or whatever. You know, you do all these things without really thinking about, well, what is this going to do to me? And then after it does what it does, you go to CVS, you go to Rite Aid, which is another story because Rite, as it is expressed in Rite Aid, is about ritual. That's where that right comes from. You talk about rites of passage or Rite Aid, you know, so you helping with the
You
rituals.
give him the
That's
right
right.
Hey man,
Go
good.
ahead.
Yeah. I was just, and I'm saying, thinking about, here's the thing, if you picked up or understood anything that we talked about thus far, and I hope I was able to make you think about all the degradation and destruction that has been taking place in the system and the system that has been put together, you know, that is not in the best interest of regular folks, and how greed have taken over and made all the decisions. When we talked about the plastics and stuff like that as well, that they know that it's causing harm. I mean, you can see the prostate cancer running crazy, dementia running crazy, diabetes runs crazy, you know, and you see all these things happening, and you can see from the body to the economy to the planet that this system that this man is running is not working. It's not in your best interest. It's not working. And that's where I'm going right back to critical thinking again, Vince. Critical thinking. I mean, you're seeing this, you're experiencing this. This is in your face. So my question is, when you was talking about food and animals and all those things, with those kind of qualities, with that kind of history, what with that kind of past that you can see, how could you trust the man to do anything for you? You think he's going to do the proper thing and taking care of those animals and feeding them right and taking them to the market right? He's going to fatten them up, shoot them up with anything to make $1. Come on, man. I'm not saying I might never eat a piece of chicken before in life, but I'm saying if you're going to eat some chicken, know where it's coming from. Know who's growing it and what they're being fed, or whatever. At least do that point. That's what I'm making. At least how you gonna sit back and trust the man to do the right thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, man. He done showed you over and over for years and years that he's not gonna do it right. And it's all about greed and money, because he have to have this superiority. He got to have his foot on somebody's neck, even if his own people. Look what they did in Europe. Even with his own people, he got to have his foot on somebody's neck. So with that being said, when you're having critical thinking, like we said before, how you think you think he's going to ever teach you something that's going to enable you to rise above or equal with him? You think he ever going to do that? You ever going to feed yourself? So if he's in a minority position on the planet, he got to have so many lives be taken away So it's a, he can't have you thrive and eliminate him through just process of living. He can't do that. So he got to keep, like I say, a slow kill with the lights, a slow kill with the water, a slow kill with the fluoride, a slow kill with his medicine, in his hospitals. It's we got to see that, and you can see death all around you, and you see it more and more is occurring more and more, younger and younger and younger. So here, this is what I'm gonna say here. Please, y'all, it just came out. Dr. John Campbell, go to his YouTube channel, and it's a newer version. He got two versions. My brother said he's seen the old one. It was like 3 months ago. It's called DNA, where he's interviewing this guy. One of the DNA's videos, he's by himself. I'm talking about the one. Both of them is good, but the one I just recently seen where he's interviewing this guy, man, and they talking about DNA and all the stuff that we talked about on what's going on with this nanoparticle stuff, RNA, DNA stuff. They explaining it and breaking it down. And you're gonna think, what if you got any conscientiousness and got a critical mind, you're gonna be thinking in your head like, my God, what is this man doing? And where is he trying to take the human race? That's what you're gonna say. DNA, and it just recently came out, it's only a day old, by Dr. John Campbell.
I just pulled it up on YouTube. There's one called DNA in Florida. That might not be it,
No, that's
but
not.
it features Dr. John Campbell, and I'll continue to look for that.
Okay.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
Brother Wayne shared an interesting video with me called "The Greatest Show on Earth,"
Mm-hmm.
and it was about your former president, number 45.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just absolutely amazing. I had no idea, for the longest time, I thought that he didn't have a clue about what was going on. But the truth of the matter is he knows more than you think he knows.
Mm-hmm.
And he had something called a capitulation tour. This president went to all these different foreign countries, and he met with leaders of all these different foreign countries, and they basically were put in a position to bow down to him.
Mm.
He went to Korea, and he actually set his feet on North Korean ground. No other
Yeah.
president had ever done that.
Right. Right.
He
Mm-hmm.
went to China, he went to India, he went to all these different places, and everywhere he went, they had to bow down to him. There was also information in this video that indicated that he still has a position within the hierarchy of things, even though he's going through all the things that he's going through right now. And the fact that President Biden is not really the president. This is what this video says. You can look it up, the greatest story on earth. It's not on YouTube though, it's on Rumble. So you got to go to Rumble to get this, because YouTube ain't gonna let this out there.
Mm.
But it is an absolutely fascinating story. I wanted to circle back to the economy because there was something that I kind of left out of the conversation, and that is the importance of precious metals. Most of us aren't familiar with the blockchain. We're not familiar with cryptocurrency. We're not familiar with Forex. We're not familiar with precious metals. But right now, there's something called the Great Takeaway taking place. And it's a transfer of the wealth from those who don't have to those who do have. So what they're looking at doing is creating a scenario where you don't own anything. The slogan for the World Economic Forum is, you will own nothing and be happy. So if you don't own it, that means they own it. They own it and they control it. That's their mission. So you have currency in America that's not backed by anything. In 1971, President Nixon unhooked the US dollar from being backed by gold. And the problem was that the US dollar is and was the world reserve trading currency, which means that foreign countries were obligated to use the US dollar in their trading. Well, if they came to America and they said, here's my dollars, give me the gold. If all of these countries at one time said, okay, we want our gold, then America would have, they would have run out of gold. They didn't have enough gold on hand to cover all of these requests for an exchange. So at that point, he implemented a temporary measure, which is still in place years later, that would prevent the dollar from being backed by anything. So now you have countries like India, China, Russia. They're buying up as much gold as they can, and they're looking at backing their currencies with gold. Well, what impact does that have on the US dollar? If people have a choice between using something that's backed by gold and something that's not backed by gold, what do you think their choice is going to be? It's going to be to get something that has value. So what you can do right now in order to preserve the integrity of the things that you have saved over a lifetime is you can convert that from fiat currency into precious metals, because then you will have something that has value, something that is tangible, something that you can hold in your hand, something that can be used as an instrument of exchange. So let's say somebody has a $20,000 car and you want to buy it. Gold is somewhere around $2,500 an ounce right now. So in order for you to complete that transaction, you would just need 10, 11 coins. You just bought a $20,000 car, right? Because you use something real to receive something real. When you look at the way borrowing and all of that stuff happens with houses and cars and stuff like that, when you go to the bank and you give them your money, they issue credit. And there's something called the fractional reserve system. At a certain point, it used to be when you came to the bank with your $100 and you say, okay, I want to put this money in the bank. Well, now the bank has credit for $1,000. You came with $1,000. Now the bank has credit for $10,000. They didn't print $10,000. It's just creative accounting. The bank was only required to have 10% of their deposits on hand.
And they can lend out 9 to 10 times what they have.
Right. So what they do with this credit is they use that credit to lend money to other people, and then they charge interest on it, and then they make more money.
Marvelous. Ain't that marvelous, bro?
I mean, it was genius. It was genius. So if you take it to a larger extent and you look at our economy overall, America is almost $35 trillion in debt. $35 trillion in debt. And what they collect from US taxpayers is not enough to cover that debt. So reality is you got all these other countries that's sitting on all this gold. America don't have it like that. America is broke. And all it does year after year is they say, well, we'll just give ourselves more credit. And then they create, through creative accounting, they create the appearance that they got all this money that they don't really have. And at a certain point, this money is not going to be worth anything. Since 1913, the dollar has lost 97, 98% of its value. So as they continue to create more money, it's only a matter of time before it's not worth anything. And that's why they want to create something else, and that something else is central bank digital currencies. Now, with the central bank digital currencies, one of the knocks on it is that it's programmable. That means that they can turn it on and turn it off however they choose to. So if they look at how you live, and this is where 15-minute cities come into play. If they look at how you've been spending your money, they can say, oh, well, you spent $300 on gas. and you only live 5 miles away from where you work. So if you spend all this money on gas, that means that you burning up the gas, and it's having a detrimental impact on the ecology because
Mm-hmm.
your carbon footprint is too large.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they can say, okay, well, you can't buy any more gas.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they're concerned about health, okay, you got a drinking problem. You buy a fifth of vodka every day, right? Over a period of a week, bruh, you bought too much vodka. You can't buy no more vodka because it's doing you no good, and if you're feeding it to other folk, it's not doing them any good either. So they can prevent your transaction. If you don't think that this is real, it is real. Because in certain places, and you can look back to Canada last year when they had the trucker strike, the banks shut down their bank accounts. You couldn't buy or sell or anything. You couldn't use your account because they froze it.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea of them being able to control your money, it's not as far-fetched as you think it is. That's what they want to do with central bank digital currencies. On
Mm-hmm.
top of that, they want to give cryptocurrency, the central bank digital currencies, they want to give them an expiration date. So just think, you got $2,000 in $100 bills, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden they say, well, this paper isn't good anymore. Well, they could do the same thing with central bank digital currencies. They could say that this money no longer exists and it's just a keystroke on a computer. Your account is wiped out. That's what they want to do with central bank digital currencies. Now, there are states like Florida and Texas that are saying central bank digital currencies cannot be legal in our state. So there is a certain level of resistance. But the idea is that they want to give the banks greater control over your money. Christine Lagarde is running the European Central Bank, and she and her folks in the Bank for International Settlements think that it's a bad idea for you to have cash and for you to use cash. So they are putting restrictions on how much you can spend with fiat currency. So if you spend more than 500 euros on something, it's a problem. They want to prevent you from spending fiat currency beyond a certain. Now, here in America, if you spend on something that exceeds a certain amount, your account gets flagged. If you go to the bank and you say, I want to withdraw $1,500, then they're going to ask you, well, what are you going to use it for? You gave them your money and you asked for your money back, and they're giving you the third degree. It's my money. I spend it on whatever I want to spend it on. Why? What gives you the right to ask me what I'm going to do with my money? But the
Mm-hmm.
problem is when you put your money in their bank, it's not your money anymore. And that's why they can limit what you do with it because it's not your money anymore. When you got that gold and silver,
Mm-hmm.
it's your money.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have control. Go
Yeah.
ahead, bro.
Yeah. It's just interesting to see, I'm back to this, again, corruption on top of corruption. You start a system. Okay, let's go back a little bit to America. How America was formed. They emptied their jails in Europe. Okay, so you got a bunch of you got a system that is made up of unjust people. So how can you have a just society made up on unjust people? Okay, so they've been formulating this thing why they've been entertaining us for quite some time, some centuries. They've been working on this in some decades. And like uh one of our people in the chat talking about, which I was going to touch on, and the interesting part to all that what you're saying with this dollar, is when this whole Federal Reserve situation came into place too, with that debt situation that you was talking about. It's strange, you know. Now you got a non-federal group of banks and people actually printing the money for the country. These are the people we owe this debt to, you know, and they funnel in the money that we owe back to, you know. If people don't know, that's Lincoln had some faced some demise because of that's what he was gonna come up with the greenbacks. The greenbacks. Kennedy was talking was teetering around with that whole situation too. There's some statements out there where some presidents say, how we get in this situation here where we got this outside entity printing our money for them. That's why Saddam Hussein was killed. He was talking about dealing with some dollars and natural resources with the euro dollar. They had to take him out because we always talk about Gaddafi's situation with resources and things of that nature. We're gonna see what they're gonna do with Africa when they talking about the gold coin that is coming out and some other things. Ghana was talking about having first rights for any gold being mined there. I just seen a video the other night that they was talking about is small amounts in comparison, but Nigeria, Cameroon. Look at the video. Nigeria, Cameroon, and Cameroon, and I forgot the third place place. But they're all taking their gold deposits that America had on ice for them. They taking it back. And this guy was suggesting that it was through some instability that they were seeing as far as America is concerned, like that, you know. So my point is, it's hard to keep a lie going. It's hard to, corruption, and when you're dealing with karma, you're dealing with universal principles. These things are gonna come back. And this is what some of the things that I'm suggesting is that look at some other outside sources, like you said, precious minerals and things of that nature, or going to some other places like Africa that is developing. Because I think Brother Seiko and maybe Brother Whitaker, when we was talking about Africa, I believe all three of them kind of touched on that. Even though Africa may be in the situation that they're in right now, how we look at them, but guess what? They don't owe nobody nothing. They're not in debt. They own their houses. They own it. It's not the whole credit system is not flourishing throughout Africa. You don't go get no bank loan to buy no car. You gotta have some dollars to buy a car. So they got physical assets over there. So actually, while we looking down our nose at them, they may be in a better financial situation doing because they own their house. So the question I wanted to ask people then, how many of us owe $50,000 to a black person? I'll wait. You don't owe no big debt to no black person. You owe big debt to everybody else. You are paying them. You see? So we have to change that position, brother. And I'm just giving another way of looking at all of that.
I want to bring up the comment that Brother Gerard made about the banking system existing because people believe in it. And that is absolutely true. What they have sought to do is maintain the confidence of the American people in the system. So if you remember last year, you had a number of banks that kind of went under all of a sudden. What happened was the Fed came to the rescue, and some of those other banks came to the rescue. So when they went under, Chase kind of gobbled them up. So what you're going to see over a period of time is consolidation of the banks. And the issue with that is that some of these smaller banks, some of the regional banks, some of the community banks, those are the ones that provide opportunity to people in those respective communities based on relationships.
Right.
When you take those banks out of the picture, you take away those relationships, and then you imperil businesses that depend on banks for money. You talked about Kennedy and you talked about Lincoln, but there was a president in 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created. His name was Woodrow Wilson.
Wilson.
Wilson had this idea that he got pimped. He regretted the creation of the Federal Reserve System because what he saw was that it took away the power from the people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this whole idea of a central bank has been detrimental to us since it was created back in 1913. These are the things that people aren't aware of, but they do everything that they can to maintain confidence in the system. You have
Mm-hmm.
something called the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. The FDIC insures bank deposits up to like $250,000. It might be higher right now. They may have raised it. I can't recall exactly. But the issue with the Federal Reserve is that they don't have enough to cover their exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So the FDIC is insolvent, and the FDIC is what is backing up all of these banks. But it goes back to the idea that really, for all intents and purposes, America is broke. So that takes you back to the importance of having gold and silver.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be buying some gold and silver. I'm not a financial advisor, so don't look to me for advice, but I can tell you based on what I know that it is important for you to have some precious metals in your investment portfolio if you don't have them. What you can do now is you can roll over funds from your retirement account into a precious metals account. So then it changes it from fiat currency into precious metals. So you have something that is a true store of value, and it's one of the ways that you can protect your savings,
Mm-hmm.
because as the US dollar declines in value, becomes debased, and deals with the ravages of inflation, you still have something that is increasing in value. Gold
Mm-hmm.
right now is at an all-time high. Silver, because of the industrial demands of it, is in short supply. So it being in short supply means that its value is going to increase
That's right.
exponentially, even more so than gold,
Mm-hmm.
even more so. But
Mm-hmm.
you should have both because they both have their strengths, and you can take advantage of the strengths that both of those things have. In terms of cryptocurrency, there are, you're not going to believe this. A couple years ago, there were only like 2 or 3,000 cryptocurrencies. As of today, there are at least 2.4 million
Come on,
cryptocurrencies.
man. You got to be kidding me. What?
And
Mm.
and you have asset managers like BlackRock who have asked for and received ETFs from the Securities and Exchange Commission, exchange traded funds. So BlackRock, a company that 3 years ago was poo-pooing Bitcoin, now they buying it like it's going out of style.
Mm.
So you got BlackRock, you've got Fidelity, you've got other asset managers that are buying all of this Bitcoin, and they're going to do ETFs on other coins like XRP. So what this means is that you're going to have this infusion of market capital into the cryptocurrency world. So if you thought it wasn't legit, well, there was a lawsuit that was partially resolved by a judge that declared that XRP is not a security, it's a commodity, which means it's not subject to regulation by the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so what
Mm-hmm.
what that means is that this cryptocurrency will have a place in the world economic system,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being adopted and utilized by banks around the world to facilitate cross-border payments. What does this mean? I know this is like gobbledygook to some folk, but what this means is that in certain situations, you're not using the traditional banking system to transfer money from one place to another.
Mm-hmm.
In the old system, they used something called the SWIFT system. And with the SWIFT system, it would take 3, 4, 5 days for the money to clear. That
Mm-hmm.
meant that somebody was holding your money before it got to where it needed to go. And usually there's some kind of cost in that transaction.
Right, right.
Well, with the blockchain in a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, you could have a friend in Ghana, and the friend in Ghana has something that you want. So if you want to make that purchase, you could just send Bitcoin through the internet, through the blockchain to that person without a third party.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens within the space of 5 minutes, not 5 days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there are reasons that this is advantageous to people who are conducting business. So the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, the big bank of all banks, the Bank for International Settlements, they all said, maybe we should be using this blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're doing. They have created a system within the blockchain in order to facilitate these transactions using cryptocurrency, which means that you're not using fiat currency.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
see?
and he found out it's more secure too, in a sense. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
that footprint on it. But let me see. I got about 3 or 4 minutes, Vince. Somebody's coming to look at this house. But go ahead.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I just wanted to put that out there. There are alternatives to the current system. What you want to think about is being your own bank. That means having control of your own money. And you
Mhm.
can do that through the ownership of precious metals. You can also do that through the ownership of cryptocurrency, because you can store your cryptocurrency on a personal device that you have complete control over.
Mhm.
And that way your money's not in the bank where they can do whatever they want to with it, because it ain't your money, it's their money, and they're going to use it the way they choose
And
to use.
you can always have land. You always don't, let's not forget that you can always have land.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Land, yeah, sure. Mhm.
You can have land, and you can also get ahead in real estate. That's
Mhm.
probably the thing that has created the most millionaires
Mhm.
of all. Is real
Mhm.
estate. But yeah, pay attention. Because the things that we're talking about, they're not talking about them in mainstream media to the extent that it's going to help you get ahead, because they don't want you to get ahead.
Mhm.
We'll be bringing you.
Actually we're gonna be dealing with. It seems like they're going towards the Hunger Games, that they're gonna have to supply, with the IA and all that stuff coming up. I mean AI. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
coming up and taking away jobs. What people gonna do? You're gonna have to give the government got to give them a stipend or something, or give them those that fed now, and you only got a month to spend it, and so this is where we're going.
Yeah, well, they've come up with something called universal basic income, and what they're going to be doing basically is giving Americans an allowance, but it won't be enough for you to get ahead. It'll be
Mhm.
enough for you to maybe get by, maybe not, but once again, that's the way that they control. Just know that we are going to bring you more information about the issues that we're talking about right now, so that you can be informed, and so that you can make decisions about how you deal with your finances, and how you can survive what's coming. Because the Hunger Games, it may have been a movie, but coming back to not having enough
Not
police,
working, yeah.
it,
Mm-hmm.
it all comes back to the same thing. And so you're going to have to know what's going on in order to protect yourself and to protect your interests. We didn't have the show that we were supposed to have, Brother Lynn, but we had a great show today. I think there was something in it for everyone. And again, we appreciate everyone who tuned in. Thanks to Proper T and our brother Gerard for tuning in and chiming in. We couldn't post everything, but we did want to share your sentiments, and we'd like to invite everyone, check out our YouTube channels, subscribe, comment, like it. It helps us out, and it will help you out in the long run as well. As always, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace, everyone.
Peace, y'all. Peace. All right there, brethren.